You're listening to the Real Estate Radio Hour, the show that brings you unfiltered stories and insight from the Twin Cities real estate world with your hosts, Chris Rooney, broker at RE/MAX Preferred, and Andy Presky, leader of the Preferred Home Team at RE/MAX Advantage Plus.
Thank you. These are really nice. I like these things. So,
sound effects.
Yeah, I like sound effects. I mean, I hope they play during our podcast, or if we're just laughing at ourselves. I don't know. If you can hear that,
wouldn't that be worse?
For us. Yeah, I know. Totally.
Yeah.
Crazy. Okay, so we're going to talk about we've been together here for since I think it's 2000. Was it 2012?
10.
I think it was 2010.
13
That's right.
years.
13 years. Yeah. So we've been together 13 years. So we're gonna kind of talk about. I mean, we get a lot of comments from people. I just had it from a lender that, oh, Chris and Andy, you guys are such a hoot, and I get someone a title company that's like, oh my God, you guys are. I mean, it's just like they laugh, and I think it's kind of our, we kind of hit it off right away.
Yeah.
I mean, we met through Garth Johnson at the Realty House through foreclosure markets, where you were taking all the leads from a totally different company and we weren't getting any.
Yeah.
And so I had to kind of try to get in on those. And then Garth's like, well, you should talk to him and maybe you two guys get together. And at the same time, Ryan Yardley was kind of moving on.
Yeah.
And so we started doing the radio show together. And, Andy's from the north side. I'm from the south side. And so if anyone knows, that's very different lives. Just saying.
Yeah, it is. It's different. I think it's a perception. And, I know lots of great families and, stories and success stories that I've experienced in the North Metro. And what's funny is, of course, you don't assume, just like going to another city, you just assume that doesn't happen in these other cities. I mean,
right.
How could it be just like the way I have it at my place or how I have it at my home? And I think that there's probably more similarities there than we'd even want to admit. But
it's true that you do have a Buffalo Wild Wings up there.
Right.
So that was a good thing. But I remember I came up to your place and we went to this, it was in a strip mall type place, and it was like all you could eat. What was it? Was it
the
Chinese
yummy buffet?
Yummy buffet.
Yeah.
And it was like, I mean, okay, it was a buffet, but you thought it was like the greatest thing in the world. And I'm like, you've never been to King's Buffet down in Burnsville. That thing was amazing. I mean, this one was like 2 rows of stuff, and that the other one, it was like 10 different areas. Like they had little food stations.
Reality is perception, Chris.
Me and Malmberg, I would always see him there.
Yeah.
And we'd be stuffing our faces.
Yeah.
And working. Yeah.
So we all appreciate value.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, all right. So what you got to do is you got to say what you appreciate about me.
What I appreciate about Chris Rooney is that he shows up. He has integrity and he has tenacity to keep going on things. I think that that's the not only just with our show, but I think that there's a consistency there in your business as well. I'm being honest.
I know.
I'm not trying to butter it up.
I have to make these looks to the camera.
Yeah, you can do the old. I forget the other buttons, what they do, but no. So I think that there's that's what I think has always let us relax and have fun together, is that we've been able to know that the boundaries are there of integrity, and that there's not a ethics issue, or there's not a something that I have to worry about hiding because you do something that would not be up and up. So it's like we always have had that comfort level in knowing that we're both doing the right thing. We're both living in our own worlds. We're separate markets, but yet the same industry. And I think that's been refreshing for both of us, I think,
Yeah. And I think there is something to say about, that we're not, I mean, we would basically get together. I mean, we do events and stuff like that, and quite a few before, but we would basically meet every week for 1 hour.
Yeah.
And then sometimes we'd have to do recordings and things like that. But that's what I always thought. It was it was always like if I hadn't seen you for extended amount of time, it was just right back to it. I mean, it was
Yeah.
like it was no big deal. And I also think that we have this, we 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 think a lot alike. I mean,
Yep.
to get to the end result, but how we get there might be a little different. And I think that's good. I've really enjoyed making fun of you a lot.
Well, and I think I'm a lot more in a weird way. Even though I'm an outgoing guy, I'm very conservative versus you're a risk taker. You're not afraid to say, let's buy the apartment building. And I'd be doing the math still, in the parking lot would have missed the deal. So I think that on a personal level, that is something that I've, appreciated is that you're not afraid to say, let's go for it. So for me, that is helpful and it's helped me, grow my business. And I think there's, you know, I don't know if there's times where you say, "Hey, maybe I should rethink this,"
Yes.
because
No, I'll tell
Andy
you.
would make me rethink this.
I always make fun of like the northern suburbs and stuff like that, and I think that's another big thing you've done for me is you've pushed me into that area. So there's a whole group of people that know you that automatically now know me
Yeah,
because they know, hey, those two guys are together all the
yeah.
time,
Our
and
networks are
yeah,
bigger for
and
sure.
it's so funny. Always get questions about what's Andy like, and I mean, yeah, exactly what you see. I mean, it's identical to what it is, and I just, I kind of do. It's funny you should say that because I think people would see you on whether it's a radio or whether it's broadcast that you're crazy and you're all out there, but in reality, you are pretty conservative
I
in
think
that
so.
route. Yeah, and the things that I've been telling you because I want to be Andy's producer. I want him to be his producer on these videos, and I am coming up with some different things that and I could have a field day with you. I mean, the things that you would do and come up with because you're very quick. He's very um I start forgetting things. I don't know what the hell's going on, but I start forgetting words and stuff like that. But you are really good. Nick makes fun of me
Yeah.
about me. What am I saying? And yours can really flow really fast. And so I think you can take a situation. And I was just watching on there's a squirrel again. I'm moving
Yeah.
on, but they were saying Anne Hathaway in the Princess Diaries or whatever. It said she was so good at acting that she fell and it was totally like, hey, stop it. But she kept acting during it and they ended up keeping that part. And that's what I see with you, that you can totally screw up and kind of, I mean, like, oh my God, but you'll come out of it. And I think that's pretty cool. And I think that's why the social media thing for you would be like huge. And
Huh.
Nick says it too. I just think that you'd be
Well, we'll
really
see.
good at that.
I think I'm always open to whatever, but I
Just
think,
can't use your woke ideologies out there.
yeah.
You know,
Well,
your
you know,
primary bedrooms and stuff.
yeah, no, but
Okay, we won't get into
I
that.
think that I also try not to offend and I try to make, inclusive statements.
But you do offend sometimes too.
I do because I'm a, what do they call us? Gen Xer. I grew up in the 80s with monster trucks, Dukes of Hazzard and Dallas on TV. And we had, that Friday nights were pizza nights. We never went out to eat. I mean, it was,
I remember Denny Long. I would always be sitting next to Denny and kind
Yeah.
of watching all that stuff, and Andy would be in the other corner so we could kind of see each other. And I'd always go like this. I go, Denny, watch this. And then I would say something. I knew exactly how to trigger him. And then all of a sudden he'd start, puffing up, and Denny would just start laughing.
I will admit that I do have triggers.
Oh, yeah.
And
I know them all.
Yeah. And there are like my energy level can go from 25, which is my idol. Some people go all the way down to 4 or 5, but I'm at about a 20. I always have high energy, it seems like. And then
Yeah.
I go even crazier, and I'm like, okay, I'm on the radio. We have to calm down. I can't swear. I can't insult people. I have to be careful. But as we got further into that show, we realized that, boy, we could kind of get away with a lot more than we thought. And we were allowed to talk a little bit more about the things we really felt. What I would say is this: when we talk about something, it's because we're passionate about it, right? It's a topic that is something that we think needs to be heard or talked about, or we wouldn't talk about it. If we were just an infomercial of, hey, buy houses and sell houses with us, I think that'd be a pretty boring show. So what we try to do is take the experiences that we've had over the years, apply them to a real life scenario. You guys always make fun of my stories, but in a way that I try to make things relatable. That's always something that I've, when we're talking about whatever topic it is, and we try to say, hey, can you understand this, or does this make sense when I say it like that?
Andy's analogies.
Yeah.
I mean,
But I've done that for quite a while, because I think there's
Yeah.
times where I think people nod along and say, yep, I get it, but it isn't sinking in.
Right.
And so
but when we're talking about contract law, and then all of a sudden it's about a fish, it's just like, what's he doing? And then all of a sudden, oh, okay, that totally makes sense. And it is a way. I bet you, with first time home buyers, you were very good with them
yeah.
to be able to get them to understand really kind of, hey, you don't really quite get this real estate thing, but listen to this, and how it, they can take that and adapt it to what's happening in the situation.
Except, the problem is some of my analogies now, as I'm getting older, kids go, who's Captain Kangaroo?
Yeah.
Or
What's a phone? A landline? What are you talking about? Yeah.
and
Tape
that's,
recorder?
That's one of the fun parts about, aging as you age too, as people start not getting your, hey, remember this? And they're like, what's Dallas, or what's what? And hey, that is, you are who you are, but, I would say this. I would say that, the whole gist of what we did, the reason why I got excited and joined you on this program so many years ago was really because I wanted to get out there, and I wanted to make sure that people heard more of the inside of what's going on in real estate, to understand why people do things the way they do things, or why it has to be a certain way. And there's so many people that are contrarians to just, we want to be different than the norm. But sometimes the norm is designed to protect you, or sometimes, lending practices are done in a way so that you can benefit from the laws that protect those loans or whatever. And so a lot of people don't think of it that way. So that's the whole point of it. Was I thought, boy, this would be kind of a fun platform for us. Get out there, have some fun with it, but yet at the same time, be a pro industry advocate and talk about the reality of what's really happening out there. Because I think so many people, especially now when you have all these big, companies that are investing, millions, if not billions of dollars, as they say now, like Homes.com was just saying they were investing $1.2 billion in advertising this year because they want to.
Did they call you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
they
they want to take down Zillow,
Yeah.
and that's their goal, because they think Zillow is.
What do you think of that? Do you like that at all? You like Zillow? Oh, here we go. Here's the trigger. Zillow, 6-letter word.
Well, okay, so
Here we go.
let's just be honest. Okay, so when you're clicking that button, and I'm talking to you people at home, when you click the button on book a showing, do you know that Zillow makes money off of you? Why should that not be disclosed right up front? They're either making a 30% retainer fee off of implying that you'll be under contract with that person that shows you that house. Most people also don't know that. That's why there's all these arguments and lawsuits over agency relationships, because most people are meeting their real estate agent in the driveway to show that house, and the people are doing it because it's convenient. But the reality is that when you agree to do that, you're also saying, yep, we'll let you represent us when we buy that house. And the reason why you'll never get a discount on anything is because all of these platforms are designed off 7% commissions, making full real estate perspective, the guaranteed buys and the whatevers. All these programs that are out there are all about making the real estate agents commissions, giving the perception that you don't need a real estate agent, and so that they can keep the commission. So the problem with all the new technology that's coming out right now, none of it replaces the commission. All of it is replacing just the human interaction and the advice and the counseling that you get from a real estate agent. It actually, it's kind of sickening to me, because people are getting this perception that, like, well, geez, if I buy this house direct, I'll save that commission. That's not the case. The reason why they want to deal with you directly is because they don't want to pay a commission out to somebody and they can keep the money. Same with builders. Builders do the same thing. It's like, so all these people that are out there, and I get it, the real estate industry needs to evolve, but it needs to evolve at like a National Association of Realtors level. And if they're not going to do it, they need to get out of the way. They never should have sold realtor.com. They should have kept that as a, here's what the real listing agent has to say about this property. Here's what this means. Here's, and actually use it as a platform to better our industry instead of weaken our industry and make it all about the clicks.
And I don't understand why realtors don't talk to people about their commission. It's one of the first things I talk about.
Yeah.
And I tell them, and here's why I'm getting paid. Here's how I'm getting paid. And sometimes it's lower, and sometimes we have to work through that to be able to what I offer you. And if you don't think it's worth it, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
You can go to someone else, but so many realtors won't discuss it. And I think that's kind of a big problem. I mean, realtors won't talk about agency relationships in a real estate transaction. It's the first thing you got to do.
Yeah.
At first substantive contact, you got to do it. That's the law. Minnesota law requires it. People don't do it. And so why don't they do it? because everyone's afraid. Why would you be afraid about how much money that you're making?
Do you know why they don't talk about it, Chris?
Because they don't want to. They don't want to get rejected right away, and they don't think they're not worth it.
Please listen. When you click that button on the website, right, and it says book a showing, and you book that showing, that agent, if they're not paying for a percentage of the sale, they're paying $500 a click or $600 a click. So yes, that agent or that team, they pay per click. So a showing costs them real money. They actually have to pay. So just so you know this, that agent paid money to show up in that driveway for the marriage to happen right in that driveway. They paid for that. Do you think they're going to try to close you? Yep. Do you think they know that they are going to close 1 out of 5? Yep. Do you think they're going to do any discounts? Nope. Because they've been paying everybody the big click, and so it's like that's what's wrong with our industry. I think the consumer wants a change, right? They want to be able to buy directly from the listing agent. I think that's something that if the listing agent chooses to do, they should be able to click on the listing agents and they should be able to show that house.
Yeah.
Now, just because you go there without representation doesn't mean that you have the right to ask them for half of their commission, because the listing agent is the one that's making the decision as to what they're paying out.
And there's not an agreement between the listing agent and you as a buyer. It's
None.
between the seller and them. I mean, so it's not even part of your thing. I mean,
well, and then there's cases, Chris, where I'll say to people, like with new construction, like I'll say, hey, if somebody comes in here and buys this house direct, let's do a variable rate commission where if we sell it at full rate, if somebody comes to us unrepresented, and then we can go to this rate, but it's not to save the buyer money. None of that money goes to the buyer. All of that money goes back to the seller. So they'll participate, because the biggest fear that most of these, repeat customers will have, or people that understand the business, they don't want to get sued. They want somebody to come in. They'd rather have you be represented, especially first-time buyers, or well, you told me this and then it was that, or you said this and then I thought I was going to get that. When you have representation, it's crystal clear, it's cut and dry. Everybody's got somebody in their corner and it's easy. Now, could those fees be negotiated? I hate to say it, but yes, of course. And as a listing agent, you could charge a fee. Sure. As a buyer's agent, you could charge a fee. But what they're trying to do right now is pull this whole thing apart and dissect it. What's going to happen is the buyers are going to say, I can't afford. And so now you're going to see buyers that need representation, that really need it because they don't really know what they're doing, are going to go right to the wolf and say, can you help me?
Yeah.
And then guess whose best interest they have in mind?
Absolutely.
The other side of the party's not theirs.
Seller. Yeah.
So now you're going to see tons of people getting screwed by the federal government right now, getting involved in all this lawsuits and everything that's out there. And basically they think they're trying to protect the consumer. At the end of the day, they're taking the protective cover of a real estate agent representing them off of them. And they're going to try to go out there and be these renegades buying themselves directly. And then, the whole thing's going to flip on its head, because these new rules, now you got buyers getting screwed, and there's,
but herein lies the problem. Okay. So say if I'm that listing agent, that's great. Hey, buyer doesn't do it. I'm representing the seller. There's no problem. They're not representing anyone. But if you don't help them through the process, your seller is going to lose.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be stuck doing all their work anyways. I mean, it's craziness.
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree. I think
I thought this was about how you liked me and good things about me. I
already covered that 10 minutes
triggered
ago.
You. That's why.
Yeah.
I gave you this.
You pressed the button, Chris.
I did. Wow. So anyways.
I don't know how that worked.
Well, cool. We've met a lot of cool realtors along the way too.
Yeah.
It is nice to.
We probably get the
nice
most
people.
attention from real estate agents. I get a lot of my customers will say, oh yeah, we heard your show last week, or we caught one of your little clips. But I get more feedback from agents and industry professionals. And it's kind of fun to hear, because I think a lot of them are cheering us on, to keep doing stuff like this and keep sharing it and being open. And
yeah. And I think, it was, I don't know if it was well known, but it was, for me, was that I just couldn't stand every week. I mean, and I've been doing it since 2000. When did you say 10? So I was 2 years before that. So since 2008. Yeah. So 15, 16 years of every week doing the same thing. And it was more about the fact that it was every week and it was on like the same day versus wanting to do a podcast with you. Now we're so much. It's to me, this is so much better.
We have free will,
and we're in front of each other again.
Yeah.
It's so much better.
Yeah, it works. It works.
And I enjoy doing it. And we just make Nick do more work. It's fine. Who cares? You see where he was in a
The-
jungle?
The, easy generation. Yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable.
What do they call themselves?
I don't know. Nomad. I think he calls himself a nomad.
He is a nomad.
He is a nomad. Yeah. So
Some of the places he chooses to stay, though, I commend him for his tenacity and bravery, because I love to watch what he does, but I don't know if I'd want to be there.
yeah, that's what I say too. I mean, all of a sudden he's in a jungle, and I don't hear from him for like 3 days. I'm like, are you alive? But I see this stuff on social media, and also
Yeah.
he's in a freaking jungle.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh god, that's
Well, at
crazy.
least for a couple months when he goes back to play ball, he'll be in
he'll
Germany.
he'll be stuck. So
That'll be fun though too.
well, good. Yeah, I think I'm gonna head over there. I gotta Germany. I've never been to Germany.
I haven't either.
That is one thing because I've gone to basically almost every spot except Italy, because that was the whole COVID thing. But it is kind of so you get out and do something. But
Mhm.
it's a long trip every week to go to a football game though. So
Well, thank you for listening, all of you listeners that have been with us since the beginning, and those that have just started joining us. We appreciate you. Share us, like our stuff if you can. And every little like helps, every little share helps. And if you have any comments or you'd like to make any show suggestions, we'd love to hear them as well.
or be on the show.
Or be on the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll harass you just as easy. We're always clapping.
Yeah, okay. So I have a logo in my office with LED lights, and you're like, man, what an ego on this guy. No, think of it more as creativity, okay? So when you're out there looking for real estate agents and you're out there, and trust me, there's a lot of us to choose from. You have options. People are different. There is a differentiator that's out there with negotiating skills, marketing skills, and you will get a higher price on your house if you pick the right real estate agent. The other thing, as a buyer's agent, you think, well, maybe it doesn't matter. I'm just going to click that online button, and whoever shows up at the house is going to be my agent. I'll tell you what, today's competitive market requires very creative offers. They're going to stick out in today's crowd. So you have a lot of choices for real estate agents out there. Just let me know if you need any help finding one that will help you with your selling or with your buying. All right, have a great day.
I was just 1 year old when my family started in real estate, where both my parents were agents. They also dabbled in investing in real estate, rentals, flips, and construction. After college, I went right into getting my license in July of 1990. As a 23-year-old agent in an industry that looks nothing like today, I had to know more for my clients to choose me. There wasn't Zillow or social media to tell them how good I was. I had to win them over with knowledge. With knowledge comes confidence, and with confidence comes results. I found it's amazing.
Nope, it's not.
We should get a song or something. Is there something? Let me see what else is.
Now that sounds like a deal.
Okay, let's do it. Let's speaking of deals, how about investment properties?
Yes.
Let's talk a little about some investment strategies
Okay.
on real estate.
Yeah.
Do you do those?
Yeah, I do. I think investment real estate is such a specific thing that, when somebody says to me, "Hey, I'm a real estate investor," and just to be crystal clear, there's about 50 categories of investor, and every single person I've ever met that's called themselves a real estate investor has had a different version of success and what they want and how to get it. And so, what I say is there's in real estate, there's very specific channels or lanes that people get into. You get into the single family homes, which is probably the easiest way to start. You rent that out, or you even get simpler. And
When you're saying single family homes, are you including townhomes in that?
Yeah, well, let's back it up. Let's even do townhomes, because I think townhomes, if they're rentable, that's probably the easiest. The maintenance is done for you. You pay the fees. You just charge enough to catch the rent. It's probably one of the easiest ways to have a rental property.
Yeah, at least half of the stuff is done for you.
Yeah,
it's turnkey.
But you don't have to manage,
right?
Yep, which is very nice. And then otherwise, you jump into like single family, and then single family is nice. But when people jump into single family, that's immediately where I will suggest looking at things like a duplex or a triplex. And then I'll suggest that because then your occupancy rates are less impactful. You know what I mean? So you can have, you have 3 units or 2 units. If you have one single family house, you lose your renter. Now you're paying that payment until you get another renter versus the triplex. You lose one, you still have, 66% of your income coming in off of the other 2 units. So that's what I like about that. So if somebody's a little tighter on their cash flow personally, that's probably a better strategy for them, is to get into something where they don't have to necessarily focus.
Less risk is what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they maybe even live in the property and rent out the other sides. That's another easy way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's how a lot of people get started. I've got a client of mine that I've been working with, and we're liquidating. That's exactly what they did. They bought a duplex, lived in one side, rented out the other, then decided, hey, let's rent out both and we'll buy another one. Well, they ended up buying 3 of them.
Mm.
And then they ended up saying, you know what, we'll use those as rentals. We had them for a long time. We're going to move to a single family residence. And now, you know what, I'm just sick and tired of the renters. We're liquidating those.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because we've sold 2 of them. The third one's going to be coming up this spring. And both of the ones sold exactly how they started, which was kind of neat, because
Yeah.
so it's all starting over again.
Sure.
They're buying, living on one side. You're able to finance that as a single family. It's a really good way in which to start getting into the rental property. But there's a lot of things that I suggest to people if they start wanting to go from, when we talk about investment real estate, rental part of it. So
Mhm.
that means you're buying it, you're holding it, and you've got renters in there.
Correct.
Okay. And so what's the best way in which to go? I mean, I thought that same thing. And what my whole deal was is that, geez, I save up my pennies and I wanted to buy single family homes. I didn't want to buy townhomes because I thought the association fee was just too much money and it was a waste of money, which in hindsight, I wish I would have gone more townhouses than single family because, like I said, half of the problems were gone.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the problems were delinquent taking care of the yard, because we always got our renters to kind of take, hey, this is all about you, and you mow the lawn and you take care of it. Well, by the
Right.
time you come back 3, 4, 5 years later, they haven't taken care of anything.
Right.
And so you have to redo all that stuff. And rentals aren't for everyone either.
Nope.
I know you're pretty handy.
Yep.
You're a handy guy. I'm not a handy person. And every, leaky faucet and toilet that doesn't work always happened, either on Christmas or Thanksgiving or on Saturday or Sunday night.
For
I mean,
sure.
it's crazy that it just happens to do that. So
Yep.
I think people really need to think about that. If you're going to start getting into that property, is it something that you want to do? And I would suggest highly that you're proactive rather than reactive, and
Yep.
checking those properties out monthly, and maybe having a checklist that you can go through that is like, it's going to keep you from having big things happen. So
Right.
leaks are a big thing. Furnace filters are a big thing.
Mhm.
People don't change their furnace filters. All of a sudden, it's going to ruin your whole freaking furnace, and now
Right.
you're spending $8,000-$10,000 to get that fixed.
Well, I think as a wise investor, when you're the landlord, if you want to call yourself that, is that you over time you kind of get used to the, hey, my air conditioning doesn't work, and you go through a series of questions before you drive all the way over there and drop everything, right? So you're like, hey, did you check the air filter? A lot of times the air filter is the first thing that clogs up and it stops the AC, blah blah blah, right?
What about the circuit breaker?
Circuit breaker. Yep. You flipped on the crock pot, the
Yeah.
hair dryer all at the same time, the AC started up and bloop.
Can't tell you how many times I've told people, hey, go look downstairs. There's a switch next to the furnace. See if that got switched off. Your kid did
Yeah,
it.
see if the kid did it.
Oh, amazing. It works,
Yeah.
before you have to call a, $200 service call in.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, I think that those are some of the things that, if you were right next door and a duplex or a triplex and you were, owner occupant, right? That might not be as big of a deal to run over. And you kind of, have that pride and ownership. And there's also a difference there too, because when you maintain a presence at that house and you set the bar as to this is how nice I keep my area and everything else, people kind of follow your lead. Versus see you in 6 months and somebody spills, they don't clean it up as fast, or they don't, you know what I'm saying? It's like, or the garbage blown around the yard, they don't clean it up as fast. it's just a different, I'm here part-time and I'm paying to be here. So why should I have to do it? Kind of perspective versus but I don't know. What do you think about like because I've had several of my clients over the years graduate, as I say, where they try different kinds of properties. And now this is where they claim it's a different animal, where you jump from being single property to the duplex, triplex, fourplex, and then you go to an apartment. Apartment renters are just different. It's a completely different animal as far as like how to manage it, how to properly maintain it, how to keep it full. And I think a lot of people, unfortunately, learn that lesson very expensively and end up selling at a loss because they kind of get in there and they don't know what they're doing. You've done it? You've been there,
yeah,
you've
I
done it.
have. Yeah, I think typically though, people that get to the apartment buildings have done quite a bit of stuff to be able to graduate to that. I think if you jump into that right away, it is a whole different game.
Yeah.
But if you gradually go into it, because people sometimes aren't willing to take that leap. And when you go from, hey, you know what, I've got a single family home to now I'm going to buy a 33 unit apartment building, number one, I don't know if you can finance it or not, but you're more than likely you have to have some property manager on site, to be able to handle things. And so that's a cost, and sometimes if they're getting an apartment building, maybe there's some maintenance that has to happen. So you have to have a lot of money in which to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Now there's some financing that you can get, kind of, clean them up or rehab them, different ways in which to finance. And I think that's another big thing when you're talking about investing in real estate is to meet and get maybe a local bank that you have a really good relationship with, because that's
Right.
going to bridge a lot of different opportunities out there, and they're going to work with you because your money is in there. You're doing your accounts through there, and it's a good thing to have. But you also have to look into all these other different lenders as well, because there might be it's it's a it's a dog eat dog type of world, really, in the rental part of it. You're able to sometimes be able to leverage your different properties to be able to buy other properties, and you can do that if you have good banking relationships. So if you want to be able to move it faster, it's a really good thing to do. And a smaller bank, less decision makers, that and that doesn't matter. I mean, you want them to have good deposits and stuff, but they can also those smaller banks kind of go talk. Hey, I'm going to talk to my guy in St. Peter. He's going to fund some of it for you as well. And then I'm going to go talk to that guy in Faribault. And then I've got a guy in Candy Ojai Bank and Trust, and they're able to kind of network for you to be able to get you more loans than what they're able to get you.
Mhm.
So I just think that's a real big thing to be able to do is for financing. But there is different types of financing as well, and I think sometimes people don't think that financing. They're looking on the MLS and says, "Hey, I want a contract for deed and buy it from someone." Well, sometimes people aren't going to have that contract for deed on there. Some people don't even know what contract for deed is.
Yeah.
Some people don't even know how it will benefit them.
Yeah.
And so I say you can go to anyone and offer that and say, hey, you know what? I would love to buy it. I've got $100,000 in which to be able to put down. I mean, if you do this, you're only going to get taxed on interest. I'll give you the interest if you don't have nowhere to put the money.
Yep.
And let's do a contract for deed. If you can trust me and give me a chance in which to be able to do it. And then I'll improve this property for you as well. So back to that whole apartment building thing.
Yeah.
Let's just say you've got a guy that's owned it for or gal. I have to do this right. I got to say it right. Or a thing or whatever it is, whatever you are. There you go. But let's just say that you have someone there that's just sick and tired of it. And they're just like, you know what? I just don't want to deal with this thing. Right. Hey, you give me $100,000 and you're going to fix it up. And if you go bad, I'll get it back.
Mhm.
Hey, let's go for it. And so there's ways in which to be able to kind of do that. I've also started doing some option agreements. And what option agreements are is that you give them a certain amount of money for the ability in which to purchase that at a later date,
Okay.
at sometime at a determined price. Okay. So for instance, I'll go in and say, this person might need they need some money. Okay. And they're just not ready to move yet. Maybe kids are still in school. They want to wait a couple years in which to be able to do it. Where you can go in and say, okay, they need this money, maybe try to get out of some debt, and I'll give them that money based on what the price is right now, minus like I got to get a deal on it to be able to do it because it's an investment. And then obviously there's a fee from a real estate perspective because I would end up maybe selling it.
Mhm.
So I'll put that fee down. Basically, they get to use, let's just say in this case, it's $100,000 interest free for 2 years. They don't get taxed on that money. You don't get taxed on option money until the contract is done. So once I actually fulfill that contract, then that's when the option money, becomes taxable at that
Yep.
point. And if I don't ever fulfill it and you keep the contract in place, you still have that $100,000 forever that you're not paying taxes on.
Oh,
And so we did that a lot with land deals. It's a whole nother story, but
yeah.
options agreements are pretty interesting. You just got to find the right opportunity and figure out, what those people are doing. So if there's a listing out there that's been sitting for a while, there's options. I've
Yeah.
got a guy, well, our buddy Cody in Arizona,
Yep.
and he really wants to start buying stuff and doing stuff. And I'm like, Cody, you got to go out and here's some things that you could go do and start. Well, now he's finding some of these deals, and maybe he can't do them, but now he's been able to offer them to other people.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like, hey, no one ever thought. I thought it had to say contract for deeds are available. No, it doesn't. You got to have solutions. And once you have solutions, you can be able to figure it out and what you need to do to be able to solve Andy's problem. Andy's got
Yeah.
a problem. He wants out. Andy just wants to go to Florida, just flip flops and hang out down there. And he doesn't want to worry about this. Well, but Andy really wants that monthly income. Andy, I'll give you 100 grand up front. I'll pay you, interest on that. You'll have it and you don't even have to worry about a renter.
Right.
And now it's mine,
Yep.
and now Andy might be like, hey, the numbers work. I'll give it to you for a lower price even.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of times too where you have these investment properties that are sitting there, or they might maybe they're just something unique about them that doesn't make them sell right away. Okay, so you take a property like that, and you have the questions need to be asked. I mean, I get it all the time where if we've been on the market more than 30 days on a property, I'll get people calling saying, "Hey, would you guys ever consider doing a contract for deed?" And then almost every seller will do it if the terms are to their favor. Like, yeah, we need 20% down. We want to do a 2-year maximum balloon at, 8%. It's a 30-year AM payment or whatever. They come up with a number. And then you have to make sure that over the next 2 years, you as the investor, if you've got that kind of deposit to make, you do the contract as I don't have any money to put down, or I have very little money to put down, but I will take over the payment. And in 2 years, I'll cash you out. And sometimes for the right seller, that can still work, so it's not always, it doesn't always have to be the perfect, touchdown pass. I mean, sometimes you have to fight each yard at a time to get the deal done. But I think there are sellers out there that are reasonable. I think some sellers are unreasonable. You just got to you just got to
And some
turn more
people are
rocks over
desperate.
to find them. Yeah.
And if they're desperate, and you can again come up with a solution. If you have a solution for someone, you can make these deals happen. So I think it's a good thing. And I think once and maybe it's a 2-year contract for deed. I just need a couple of years in which to be able to get the value up. So my bank, so here goes back to that relationship I have with the bank. Say the bank, hey, I'm going to get this for $1 million. I'm buying on a contract for deed. I'm giving them 100,000. I'm going to put some labor into it. I'm going to get it, and hopefully the value will be 1.2. Will you finance the 900,000 for me? Within 2 years. Okay, yeah. If you do this, this, and this, we'll do that.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden you don't have any extra money, and now it's financed, and you bridge the gap a couple of years to be able to put your touches into it to be able to create this, this equity, which in turn doesn't make you do any more down payment, and sometimes maybe even get your 100 grand back and move to the next one.
So what do you think right now, if somebody's sitting there and they've got some cash, they want to invest, they want to diversify their portfolio, what do you see right now as being the best opportunities out there for like investments in real estate?
Boy, I think it really depends on the person, but
Yep.
I'll tell you what I'm into now. I'm more into upper bracket flips. and there's less competition with those because people don't think of that. And there's a ton of houses that are in that 20, 25 year age that got beautiful, mature areas that they're in, but they just haven't updated them.
Yep.
And the values can flip. And what I like to do is go to an area that's already started doing that. And so it's kind of like, the Legends Golf Course in Credit River. So there's some beautiful houses there, but they're all built in the early 2000s. All have super great ornate woodwork, dark cherry, all this different stuff that's not in,
Mhm.
So why don't, but now people are starting to redo some of the houses. There's one new build, and all of a sudden now you want to jump in there because when those people are fixing them up, all of a sudden they turn and sell where it was maybe 1.2 before. Now it's 1.8. That's where you can make a difference. And it's really just, there's a lot of more decorating. Just it's more of a redesign versus rip a rip and add rooms, and maybe you're opening things up,
Yeah.
and maybe you're taking the old stone off the fireplace and doing a super cool nickel spacing, freaking shiplap type application to just be able to kind of update it.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a little more creativity. Obviously, you can kind of hear that in your voice when you're talking about that it's, you can express yourself a little more. You can have some fun with being creative. You can actually really bring something back to life in the eyes of a consumer. And I think that is a great flip, because a lot of flips right now that are in the entry level housing don't exist. And if they do, it's because they're distressed. Or you hear the guaranteed offers and the whatevers that are out there, or the we'll pay cash for your house. Well, you're basically selling that house wholesale to somebody is what's happening. Bottom line, just being honest with you, I'm not telling you something you probably haven't already figured out. They're not going to pay you retail. So when they say things like,
But you don't have to declutter,
yeah,
and you don't have to leave for showings.
big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, for 100 grand, I think I'll figure it out. And so the thing it comes down to is like, we don't charge commissions, we don't charge fees, but they're offering you such a low price, it doesn't matter. The fees would be cheaper. It'd be cheaper to pay everybody fees and go retail. And so that's one of the things that I think that when you're really looking at, real estate, a lot of people forget this, and this is super important. You don't make money when you buy. You make money when you sell is what everybody thinks, but that's the opposite. You make it when you buy. You have to buy correctly, buy in the right location, by the right time, by the right, like you're saying, like the Legends Golf Course, beautiful place, right? You invest back then probably $1 million, and now somebody's buying that house
A lot
for
more than that.
yeah, and some people are selling those houses for less than or about what they paid
They
for them.
purchased, yeah.
And then somebody comes in, fixes it up, flips it, makes hundreds of thousands of dollars. And those opportunities are there. And so I think that that's the one thing I would say is, so when you're selling your house and you're just giving it away, shame on you. I mean, unless you absolutely have to. And I tell you, some of these places that are out there, I've watched the numbers. I can see where they close and I can see what they're marking them up to. And it's not right. And I wish people would wake up, and that convenience is not always worth 25% of your equity.
Tell you a really interesting one. I had that, and I didn't find out until right before closing, but they had a person out that offered to purchase their place, and they said, number one, if we put it on the market, because of these things, we'd probably have to go. And I think the number was exactly 244,000, and but if we had to purchase it, it would be like 188. That we would take it on, and based on whatever. So it's 188,000. I went in there, and I'm like, I didn't know what this person said, and I'm like, I said, I think if you do this, this, and this, which was about $5,000, I think we can get 369, and I'm hoping that we can get more. And I remember them kind of looking at me like, do you really think you can? And I said, yeah, and here's the reasons why. And I was kind of like, God, I thought they were thinking more, and because most of them do. And so, anyways, we do the work. It's $5,000. We get the 369. We get 392. And so later on, and it appraised, no problem, and everything. And then all of a sudden, they told me before the closing, I'm like, oh my God. I said, why didn't you tell me? I would have given you 250.
Yeah.
I would have done that in a second. I mean, you gave me 150 grand. I mean, it's crazy. And people sometimes will go for that, but and maybe this one was just priced really crazily and they just didn't really know. And I'm like, are you sure they didn't mean 344 and 280? She goes, oh no. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And that's the reason they called them directly. Then
Yeah.
one of their friends said, well, you got to call my guy, which was me. Because they were only going
Smart
with that
move.
one whoever it was. So,
Yeah, but Chris, I tell you that is exactly where I don't understand how these companies exist. And we used to call it equity stripping back in the day. And, now it's considered to be a normal business practice as long as you're not a licensed real estate agent. And some of the licensed real estate agents do it as well. And they're representing those investors and they're making a spin on all of that. So here's what I'd say to you. In real estate investing, just getting in the game is probably the most important thing. So if you're a young kid, young person, whatever, getting into, want to get out of an apartment, get into a house.
I
think
like
that's
your
the most
idea of a
important.
duplex or a fourplex for
Yeah.
a young kid.
Yeah.
I really do. I think that's a awesome thing. They can live there, they can experience, they can get a feel for it.
Mhm.
A couple years, move on.
Yeah.
And go buy another one. And that's how you can build your portfolio pretty quick while you're learning.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get really hurt. And I liked your analogy of, if you lose one, it's not going to break you. If you lose two, okay, that's going to hurt.
Renters. Yeah.
But it's not like you're completely out.
Yep.
So you'd have to lose all three in which to do it. And then if you do lose one, hey, let's remodel this one. Understand what you can get for rents.
Yep.
'Cause that's a big thing. And I'll tell you the other thing with buying investment properties is where you're buying them.
Yes.
You got to get the right deal in the right location. And if you do, you're gonna win.
Yep.
But you also can't be afraid to be able to maximize really what it is. I met with a gal who's was been in the corporate world, ended up losing her job, and her and her brother are putting together almost a little over $1 million. And they're buying houses, and they're not even sticking just here in Minnesota. They looked at Nashville. The Asheville area is a really good area in which to be able to invest in, and they've got all these formulas and everything that they're using. But one of them is that their main thing was they're finding an area and what the average rents are, and then they're going after that, regardless of what the price is. So if it's those rents you can get there, and it's a 2-bedroom, you can get 2,200. They're going to try to find anything that's there, and then they will upgrade it to get to that 2,200. But they know that they can get it. And so it's kind of interesting. And then they're buying it in cash.
Yep.
So they can get it done. And then they're financing it after they redo all the upgrades.
Sure.
Based on what the rentals are going to be, and so then it is great. Now they take it out, and they move it to the next one.
Well, and I guess I'd like to leave with this kind of as an ending, that as a person buying into their first house, for an example, an investor can be someone that's buying a property to buy it for themselves, to live in it, take care of it, improve it, ride the appreciation train up, right? You have to have a place to live anyway. And I think that's how I learned the power of real estate, was when I bought my first house. I lived there for 8 years, turned around and sold it, made hundreds of thousands of dollars that I would have never made on my own, and turned something that was just a normal living situation into a very profitable, wow, I'm learning the game. So even if you're sitting there right now and you're thinking, oh, I don't know how to get started, talk to a real estate agent. Obviously we're available too, but I mean, I think that it's more important to get out there and get in the game than it is to keep talking about it. And if it means buying one for yourself and you live in it and you rent out a couple of rooms to buddies, or you buy it, you own it, and then you move on to the next one and you keep that one as your first investment property because you know it inside and out and you had the chance to improve it. So it's, bulletproof for renters. However that is, I just say, whatever you do, however you do it, I'd say get into it.
Yeah. I mean, it's proven over time. It's a great investment. So, but sometimes you can lose at it too. So you just gotta, I would caution people that aren't very handy and or don't have access to something that is handy to just be cautious and doing it. Because if you don't like it, and if you don't like conflict, because you will have conflict with renters, and that if they don't pay, you got to get rid of them. I mean, it's just what it is. I mean, it's business. And if you got a good heart, which I always did, my wife was like, you don't pay, you're gone, and she's much nicer than me.
You ran the charity, she ran the business.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. It was kind of, oh, don't worry, get it to me next week and get it to me next month. Oh, well, can you pay me this year? I mean, that's what it kind of got to, but I was like, oh, Chris, their cat got his tail stuck in the car. I mean, what are we supposed to do? They had to pay for that. And she's just like, look at me, let me take care of it,
Yeah.
So crazy stuff.
Well, cool. Well, that was good. I'll yeah.
Are you hearing this too?
Thanks for joining us this week on the Real Estate Radio Hour. Don't forget to visit our website, realestateradiohour.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or your preferred podcast listening app. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes or sharing us with a friend. Until next time, stay awesome, Twin Cities.